Modern feudalism is back. Get used to it. I don't like it, but here we are. I don't know if feudalism ever went away, but it definitely feels like we're in this era of modern feudalism. And what I mean by that is I was born in this country. My parents are immigrants here to Canada. They came here for a better life. I was lucky enough to be born here. And I feel like through the 1970s and the 80s and maybe even part of the 1990s, you could earn an income and quote unquote get ahead. But that ship has now sailed. I feel like we're going back to this feudalism era, this feudal era, where if you do not own property, it is very difficult to get ahead. Your income alone isn't going to outpace the debasement of the money supply that is happening in basically all of the Western world. There's way too much debt in the world, and the strategy for the governments and the central banks to get out of this debt burden is to print a lot of money and increase the money supply even greater than the level of debt. And what that does is it robs all our purchasing power. So if you're earning an income, like my father, who was a drywaller, he could get ahead. We had what I would call a middle-class house in Mississauga. He managed to pay off the mortgage, and he did that all working as a drywaller, raising 2 kids. You know, we had some good times. We also had some difficult times, no doubt, but we had good times as well. And that was done on a salary. That ship really feels like it's sailed. If you don't own property today, whether it's a real estate portfolio, land, maybe it's fine art, you know, a whole cadre of Rolexes, a business I would classify here as some property as well. If you don't own something like that to pass on to the next generation, how is the next generation going to earn enough in an income to support a life where they buy their own home? It's not really possible anymore. So we are back to this feudal era, and there might have been a brief moment, maybe I'm fooling myself, but it feels like there was a brief moment, at least in this country, in Canada, where incomes could get you ahead. But if you don't understand now that incomes are not enough to get you ahead, that you need some form of good property to get ahead, I feel like in the next 5 or 10 years, you're gonna look around and wonder what happened to your personal purchasing power if you're solely depending on an income. And it's why here we talk about good leveraged income property, and leverage is difficult sometimes for people to accept, but it's the leverage on income property that gets you enough gains to outpace the monetary debasement going on in the world. And it's why we talk so much about Bitcoin, because it's pure digital scarcity on a global network that any one of us can access. And in fiat dollar returns, the compound annual growth rate over any 4-year window, and do this for yourself, is rather astronomical. So these to us are 2 good forms of property to focus on to try to escape this world of having your income outpace your expenses, which is becoming more and more difficult. So we're kind of back, unfortunately, to this feudal era, and I don't understand how you would outpace some of the costs in life without owning good property. So modern feudalism is back. Get used to it. I don't like it, but here we are.